phrasing like that so you can answer specifically, not just know the list of stuff that you've got to know, right? So here, in many ways, is where we're going to go over a really detailed section, but we're going to do it relatively quickly. I've effectively provided you the teaching on this, right? But I want you to be absolutely confident with your analysis of movement. Now, what I've done here is I've chosen the analysis of movement that your exam board has named specifically that they're likely to ask about. Can I suggest to you very clearly that the examples I have used are not exhaustive? It's absolutely reasonable for the exam board to ask you other examples. Do I think they will? No, I think they'll come from the ones I've got here, but they can. Okay, so I just want to make that absolutely clear. Now, we've already looked here at the press up. Can I just stress that we've got two phases? Have a look at that, and can I just repeat again? In the downwards phase, we have got the isonic eccentric contraction of the tricep. Why? Because this muscle, while it's lengthening under tension on the way down, it is acting as a brake. It is slowing the movement down towards the floor. It is pulling on the ulna to prevent us accelerating too much towards the ground and potentially bashing our nose. Now let's take things a bit further. Now we've got a throw in here. This is one that I feel we should be really prepared for. Now can I stress we do have two phases. We have the preparation phase. This is what we've got here in the picture. Okay, preparation phase. But can I stress here that if the arms had moved to here and the ball was on its way out, this is what we'd call the release phase. Okay, so I've only produced one image of this at the moment. So what do we get here? They're both concentric contractions, but on the way back, as the arm is flexing at the elbow specifically, the muscle which is creating that movement concentrically is our bicep. You know, it's the front of the arm. But as we get elbow extension, and this is really the point we want to make, as we get extension of the elbow, the tricep is doing that concentrically and propelling the ball forward by extending the arm at the elbow specifically. Let's take it a bit further. We've got a kicking action here. Of course, what we've got, effectively, we've got the preparation and the kicking phase. So just notice that this is the prep and this is, if you like, the kick. Okay, so they're the two phases here. Now, obviously, let's look at the hip first. If the hip in the preparation phase is behind the body, then by definition, that's extension. If in the kicking phase, it's in front of the body, that's flexion. So, of course, the preparation is done by the gluteals because they extend the hips, whereas the kicking phase is done by the hip flexors because they flex the hips. They are both concentric. Now at the knee, of course, here we're going through a flexion pattern in the preparation phase, so that has to be done by the hamstrings, which pull concentrically to effectively bend to flex the knee, and the kicking action, the straightening or the extension of the knee here, that's been done by the quadriceps concentrically, because that's the muscle which, when it shortens, straightens the knee, it extends the knee. Lovely. Now, a little bit of controversy in this last one. We've got the preparation and the kicking phase at the ankle. Now, definitely here, we have plantar flexion. Everyone agrees with that, I think. Plantar flexion. Now, of course, that is achieved by the gastrocnemius contracting concentrically, pulling on the Achilles tendon, pulling on the heel, and it pulls the toes downwards, right, Bob? Or produces that plantar flexion. Now, a really good kicking technique, in my opinion, some people might disagree, a really good kicking technique would still have a plantar flexed ankle in the kicking phase. Now that's my opinion, you have to agree with it, but in this image we've got a dorsiflexion. So if I call this DF, the foot has come back up, and of course the muscle that's doing that is the tibialis anterior. So in this specific image we've got dorsiflexion, and therefore the tibialis anterior, this muscle that lies across the shin here, is pulling on the bones of the feet and is pulling the foot upwards. Okay, and it's doing that concentrically. Now here, what we've got is we've got a vertical jump, very similar to our squat sort of notion. So vertical jump. Here we've got effectively the takeoff and the landing. So if you consider this to be takeoff, if you consider this to be landing, she's on her way down here, feet back to hit the ground. So what have we got? So in terms of the takeoff, we've got the gluteals. They are contracting concentrically. Now think that through. Why is that? As she straightens up here, her hip here is going to begin to straighten out and her legs are going to become straight, right? Well, that is extension. Therefore, the gluteals are doing that, and they're doing that concentrically. Now, when she lands, she's effectively going to, move back down into this kind of position, and that means the gluteals have to act as a brake and contract eccentrically to do that. And then we get that theme for all three. So you see this theme here? Concentric to eccentric, concentric to eccentric, concentric to eccentric, because the takeoff is concentric for that muscle, but as it lands, it acts as a brake and slows the descent down. And that's the key thing I want you to get across with get across to you with the vertical jump. Let's go a little bit further. A lot to do in the running action here, folks. What have we got? We've got the hip, the knee, and the ankle. Now, we are arguing that all of this is concentric. Now, that's kind of an interesting concept in running because there are quite some eccentric elements to it. But anyway, with what we've got, which is the drive and the recovery leg, and I stress that this is the drive because it's pushing down on the ground. This is the recovery because it's coming through to strike in front again, okay? So, of course, in the drive, we've got hip extension. In the recovery, we've got hip flexion. Therefore, our gluteals power the hip extension and the flexors power hip flexion. That's fairly easy. With the knee, we've got extension in the drive. We've got flexion in the recovery. So, of course, the quadriceps power the drive phase and the hamstrings power the recovery phase. And at the ankle, of course, we've got plantar flexion in the drive phase and we've got dorsiflexion here in the recovery phase. So, of course, it's the gastrocnemius and the tibialis anterior, always contracting concentrically. And just as a note of clarification here, just a reminder that in a bowling action, we can combine flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction of the shoulder. In other words, it's going to rotate around like this, and that means circumduction. So make sure we can do that. In this case, it's an isotonic concentric contraction of which muscle? Of the deltoid, effectively the shoulder muscle. So let's take this into a question. Oh, by the way, I put this one in because I just want you guys to be prepared. Can you just remind yourself that you have got some stabilizing muscles of the shoulder, stabilizing muscles, shoulder, and they are called the rotator cuff. Now, I did actually mean to put a lovely image of this in, but I just wanted to make sure that we were really understanding that the name of the group of muscles which stabilize, there's actually 4 muscles in there. They've got some mad names, teres minor, infraspinalis, subscapularis, don't worry about it. But we must know that's our rotator cuff. Secondly, in this one, identify the type of movement at the shoulder of the throwing arm in phase B. So here's my phase B. The arm has gone in front of the body. That has to mean it's flexing, shoulder flexion in this case. Here's our classic running example. Identify the type of movement at the knee and of the recovery leg. So my recovery leg is coming through. And what have we got there? We've got the knee is extended. Okay, so we've got the knee is extended. Oh, sorry. I think that image might be wrong. I need to have a look back at that one. And then here we've got here hip flexors as the main agonist at the hip during the drive phase. I think we might have some errors in the images there. I need to check that. Okay, let's move on to components of fitness here.